Thanks, Catherine. Wow, what an impressive set of scholars I'm surrounded by. Tough acts to follow. I think I might start with something different. Okay, hands up, who here thinks that climate is the biggest challenge that Australian farmers face? Oh, come on team, we're in South Australia. Give your South Australian cousins some love. As a dryland grain farmer from the southeast of Western Australia, I would tend to agree with you. In fact, I began my Nuffield journey seeking strategies to build climate resilience in our dryland systems. As you can see, I have deep passions for farming, agronomy, and the environment. However, I soon discovered that not only were Australian farmers leaders at turning rain into grain, but also that climate variability may not be the biggest issue we face into the future. Increasing regulation, single-issue activism, and policy driven by emotion, not science, were apparent in most conversations I had on my early travels. It made me stop and reflect on what I was doing locally as a grower to shape this. So, like many Nuffield scholars high on the drug of travel, I came home fueled with desire to change the world. But I couldn't find clear pathways to successfully get involved. Conversations with my peers led to the same outcomes. We didn't feel that the current organisations necessarily reflected us or our values, and the 3,500 kilometres to Canberra wasn't the only type of distance we felt from policymakers. So I chose to pivot and change my topic to discover ways to raise the farmer voice to influence policy. My focus became on understanding how our world-class farmers could remain doing what they do best while also being informed, connected, and influential in shaping the policies that impact the future of their operations. Before I get into some key takeaways, I just wanted to share some early learnings that shaped my appreciation for why this topic is important. Firstly, I had some quite formative experiences in Zimbabwe and Argentina, both of which are confronting examples of what happens when farmers, governments, and society are deeply disconnected. While somewhat dystopian in nature, these examples are real, recent, and the impact on industry is multi-generational. From perspectives gained on my travel, I also became to appreciate that Australia has its own unique set of challenges that shape how our industry behaves and why successful advocacy is difficult. We have a low population density that's highly urbanised. We have export-focused trade, thousands of diverse agro-ecosystems across the country, and policymakers thousands of kilometres away. Tie that in with climate variability and a lack of subsidies, and you see why Australian farmers have had to survive through optimising our production systems first and foremost. And finally, what makes a good farmer doesn't necessarily make a good advocate. Studies show that 80% of farmers in Australia fall into just 2 of the 16 personality types observed in society. I'm one of them. These can be summarised broadly as practical types that are stoic, can handle adversity, and just get on with it, and are typically focused on real solutions in the present. While these traits are great strengths on farm, they actually make us less likely to engage with the long-term abstract concepts that influence policy, like trade, climate, or sustainability. I'm just going to cut to the chase because I know you're going to ask this question. Where did it work? I'm not sure if you can guess from this, but this is a classic farmer lunch, maybe spiced up a little bit. Pickled fish, rye bread, and schnapps. Somehow it snuck a Scandi country visit into the Nuffield travel budget, but whilst we only spent 2 days with farmers in Denmark, a quote that summed up their progressive attitude to working alongside government to reach mutually beneficial policy outcomes was, "Times have changed. New policy has to be a compromise now. It can't go the farmer's way every time. We have to cooperate." This is straight out of a farmer's mouth who is actually in his mid-50s, so a simple but powerful reminder that leads into my key learnings. Modern problems require modern solutions. Disruption to our framework is needed. Each election, Parliament becomes younger, more cosmopolitan, and more diverse. More than ever, policy is shaped by emotion over science, and these changing dynamics demand agriculture to evolve how it advocates for itself and whose voices are heard in the process. Organisations need to invest in stronger governance, clear strategy, and inclusive, future-focused leadership. Representation is important as people connect with leaders who reflect them, and engagement is key. To ensure long-term financial sustainability, organisations may also need to diversify revenue streams and services. To remain relevant and of value to their members, farmers' unions in Europe, the UK and the US provide a range of services beyond advocacy, including legal or financial advice, advisory support, or financial products like insurance. This not only generates income, but also proves value to growers through reducing administrative burden or costs. This must be, however, carefully managed to not distract from the organisation's core purpose of advocacy. We also need to utilise modern tools: Zoom, calls, short videos, online surveys, social media. While advocacy is presence, we have the means to remain connected and accessible beyond the physical sense. Organisations can utilise modern tools to capture farmer voices or shorten the communication chain and connect the right growers directly with the right people in Parliament. With policy increasingly driven by emotion, we must harness the innate, deep passion our farmers hold for their industry. Organisations need to identify and support authentic growers who may not be able to attend every meeting, but whose insights and energy can inspire and influence policy. For an international perspective, the president of the Lower Saxony Farmers Union in Germany said to me, "For a long time, we had loud people at the top, and then we realised no one wanted to deal with us. Once we changed, brought the youth and women along, we were far more successful." Big learning number 2, unite to be heard. There's power in numbers, and as Aussie farmers, we're already on the back foot. Australia's agricultural diversity makes united advocacy hard, but fragmentation that stems from differences in beliefs, personalities, and views make it worse. The need for unity is clear when disagreements between groups spill into the public space. This public infighting significantly undermines credibility and reputation. Where possible, groups need to resolve differences behind closed doors and, at minimum, present a consistent message to the public and political level. Collaboration is power. If groups can't merge, they must prioritise collaboration and align where possible so that they can leverage shared resources to strengthen the collective voice of farmers. This not only refers to other advocacy bodies, but also with unexpected allies. Non-government organisations, not-for-profits or other parties, sometimes seen as the enemy, that have strong funding and public backing often share similar goals with us on sustainability and food safety, though their methods differ. A great example I learned about was in 2024 when the Greens European Free Alliance joined farmers' unions in Brussels to protest the Mercosur agreement, united over concerns for sustainable food production. This is a great example of the power of unexpected allies, and I would love to see us working with the Greens because that would be an incredible outcome. A united position gets traction. Policymakers actually just want one solution, not competing views. They want us to make their jobs easier. As one New Zealand farmer said, you need to work together on the 95% you agree on rather than focus on the 5% you don't. Just like the recent proposed inheritance tax for the UK or unrealised capital gains on super here in Australia, farming advocacy groups need to pick their battles, focus on the big issues that affect a widespread amount of farmers, collaborate with other groups, and take strong, prepared arguments and solutions to policymakers. Which brings me to my final takeaway: shape the agenda, don't chase it. We need to be proactive. Farmers must share stories and data that highlight the good work being done, not only to combat misinformation, but to prevent policymakers from forming one-sided views. In a rapid, interconnected world, getting ahead of the story is critical, and we need to share in ways that resonate. Stories of resilience sell better than those of despair. Where understanding of agriculture is limited, link farming to concepts like food security or small business. This photo, taken in a European airport, shows how strongly NFPs rely on storytelling, positive reinforcement, and emotion, and how successful that can be. Advocacy must also avoid being reactive and crisis-driven. Lobbying has its place, but the goal should be to explain what matters before legislation is finalised. Proactive advocacy makes farmer-led organisations more relevant and attracts progressive growers. Organisations need to anticipate what's coming, when it will occur, and how it will affect farmers so we can negotiate change rather than resisting it. Advocacy must also transcend political colours and lines. We need to avoid aligning ourselves with one party, unpopular opinion, and rather be apolitical and focus on outcomes regardless of who is in government. We must come with solutions, not just opposition. Being against everything weakens credibility. Advocacy groups must be selective, strategic, focus on key priorities, and allow issues with smaller impact to proceed in the name of progress. All of this builds credibility and trust. Farmers and advocacy groups need to build political capital through investing in relationships and knowing when to be robust and equally when to be quiet, so that when the time comes that we need to spend our political capital, we have some in the bank. So to wrap this up with a somewhat straightforward statement that I'm not going to quote the person on, if you're banging your fists on the table demanding a seat at it, you aren't mature enough to be there. Influence stems from trust and credibility, not volume. To successfully shape policy, we need strategy, patience, and professionalism. A huge thank you to my sponsor, CSBP Fertilisers and Nuffield Australia, for making this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity available to me. And a massive heartfelt thank you must go to all of my supporters along the way, notably my now fiancé, who was my boyfriend when I started, but proposed on a Nuffield trip, and favourite travel companion, Brad, and all of the special scholars I've lent on and learnt from during this process. A million times over, thank you.